Marcus Hayes never thought his medical degree from Earth would make him famous across the galaxy. He was just a regular doctor who wanted to help people. But things changed when he arrived at the Celestial Harmony Medical Station. The station was huge. It was a giant rotating cylinder floating in space, 3 miles long and home to 40,000 aliens from 200 different species. Marcus had arrived 6 months ago as part of Earth's program to share medical knowledge with other worlds. He was excited but also nervous. Humans were new to space travel, and most aliens thought Earth people were strange. His boss was an alien named Velmora. She was a Thaxian, which meant she had 4 arms and could do surgery with amazing precision. Her people were famous doctors across the galaxy. When Marcus first met her, she made it clear that she did not expect much from him. After all, humans had only learned to travel faster than light 30 years ago. They were babies compared to species that had been exploring space for thousands of years. Marcus tried his best to learn. He watched the alien doctors work. He studied their techniques. He asked questions. Some of the aliens were kind and patient with him. Others treated him like he was stupid. Marcus kept working hard anyway. That was what humans did. They did not give up easily. Everything changed on a cold Tuesday morning when the alarms went off in the medical bay. A Krillian diplomat had been hurt in an accident on his ship. The Krillians were massive creatures made of living crystal. They stood 12 feet tall and weighed over 800 pounds. Ambassador Krethnal had a huge crack in his chest area, and the delicate crystal organs inside his body were failing. Velmora and her team rushed to help. Marcus watched from the observation gallery where junior doctors learned by watching. He saw them work for 6 hours straight, trying everything they knew. But nothing worked. The ambassador was getting worse, not better. The problem was simple but terrible. Every time the doctors tried to fix a crack, their tools caused more cracks to form. The Krillian body was too fragile. It was like trying to fix broken glass with a hammer. The more they tried to help, the more damage they caused. Marcus heard Velmora tell her team that Ambassador Krethnal would die within an hour. There was nothing more they could do. The other doctors looked sad and defeated. They had tried their best, but sometimes in medicine, your best is not enough. But Marcus saw something that the others did not see. The way the cracks were spreading through the ambassador's crystal body reminded him of something from Earth. During his medical training in Colorado, he had treated mountain climbers who got sick from altitude and cold. He had seen what happened when ice formed in human tissue and how the damage spread. Marcus made a decision. He left the observation gallery and walked down to the surgery floor. His heart was beating fast. He knew he might make Velmora angry, but he had to try. Velmora saw him, and her translator device made her musical language sound flat and annoyed in English. She told him that junior doctors were not allowed in the surgery area during critical procedures. Marcus took a deep breath and spoke. He said he had an idea that might save the ambassador's life. Velmora's sensory stalks quivered. Marcus had learned this meant she was irritated. She asked him what a human could possibly know about crystal biology. His species had never even seen a Krillian before joining the galactic community. Marcus explained his idea quickly. He said they were looking at the problem wrong. They were trying to repair the cracks immediately, but that was causing stress and making new cracks form. On Earth, when doctors dealt with certain types of ice damage and frozen tissue, they learned that you had to stabilize the temperature first before trying to repair anything. He suggested using a cooling field around the damaged areas while using a flexible support material to hold the crystal structure together. If they could stop the cracks from spreading, the ambassador's body might heal itself naturally. Krillians could regenerate their crystal structure, but only if the damage stopped getting worse. Velmora was quiet for a long moment. Marcus could see her thinking. Finally, she gestured to her team with her 4 arms. She said they had nothing to lose. The ambassador was dying anyway. They would try the human doctor's idea. The next 3 hours were the most intense of Marcus's life. He worked next to the Thaxian surgical team. His hands were steadier than they had ever been. The polymer compound he suggested, which was originally made for fixing broken human bones, worked perfectly to support the crystal structure. The cooling field stopped the cracks from spreading. Slowly, very slowly, Ambassador Krethnal's vital signs improved. The crystal matrices inside his body stopped breaking apart. They began to regenerate. The ambassador would live. When the surgery was finally over, Marcus felt like he might collapse from exhaustion. His hands were shaking. His back hurt from standing so long. But he felt amazing. They had saved a life that everyone thought was lost. Velamora approached him as they were cleaning up. She moved her forearms in a gesture that Marcus had learned meant respect among her people. She said she owed him an apology. She had underestimated humans and their abilities. Marcus smiled. He was too tired to say much. He just said that humans were good at adapting. Earth had taught them that. When you grow up on a dangerous planet, you learn to find creative solutions to problems. Velamora said something that Marcus would never forget. She called it a Deathworlder's perspective. She said that maybe galactic medicine needed exactly that kind of thinking. Marcus did not understand what she meant at the time. He just thought he had gotten lucky with one good idea. He had no clue that word of what he did would spread through the station like wildfire. Within days, everyone knew about the human doctor who saved a Krillian diplomat using ideas from Earth. Aliens who had ignored Marcus before now stopped to talk to him in the hallways. Junior doctors asked him questions about human medicine. Even the station commander sent him a message of congratulations. Ambassador Krethnal recovered fully over the next few weeks. Before he left the station to return to his diplomatic duties, he came to thank Marcus personally. The massive crystal being stood in Marcus's small office, barely fitting through the door. Through his translator, he said that Marcus had given him a second chance at life. He said he would never forget the human doctor's kindness and cleverness. Marcus felt embarrassed by all the attention. He was just doing his job. But deep inside, he felt something else too. He felt like maybe he belonged here after all. Maybe being from Earth, from a planet that most aliens considered too dangerous to visit, was not a weakness. Maybe it was a strength. He looked out the window of his quarters that night at the stars beyond the station. Somewhere out there were billions of beings living on thousands of worlds, and now at least a few of them knew that humans had something valuable to offer. Marcus Hayes did not know it yet, but his legend was just beginning to grow. The story of the Deathworlder doctor who saw solutions where others saw only impossibilities would spread far beyond the celestial harmony. But that was for the future. For now, Marcus was just happy that he had saved one life, and in the end, that was what being a doctor was all about. 3 weeks had passed since Marcus saved the Krillian ambassador. Life on the celestial harmony had changed for him. Other doctors now asked for his opinions. Velamora included him in important cases. People respected him. It felt good, but Marcus knew he still had much to learn. Then a new patient arrived who would test everything Marcus thought he knew about medicine. Her name was Shipra. She was a young Velan, only 16 years old by Earth standards. The Velans were beautiful creatures who evolved on a world with very low gravity. They were tall and thin with huge eyes and skin so delicate you could almost see through it. On their home planet, they drifted through floating forests like dancers. But Shipra was dying and nobody knew how to save her. The problem was gravity. The celestial harmony used standard gravity of 0.8 Earth normal. This was comfortable for most species in the galaxy. But for Velans it was crushing. Their bodies were not built to handle that much weight. Shipra's bones were breaking slowly under the pressure. Her heart was struggling to pump blood. Every day she got weaker. Marcus read her medical files with growing concern. Shipra had won a scholarship to study engineering at the station. She was brilliant and had big dreams, but her body was failing faster than anyone expected. The other doctors had tried everything they could think of. They gave her medicine to strengthen her bones. They tried to boost her heart function. Nothing worked. The damage was happening too fast. A Velan doctor named Kent came to the station to help. He wore a powered suit just to move around in the gravity. Even with the suit helping him, he looked tired and in pain. Kent explained that they had no solution. They could send Shipra home, but that would mean giving up on her dreams. They could build her a special low-gravity room, but she would be trapped there like a prisoner. They could put her in suspended animation, but then she could not study or live her life. Marcus met Shipra in her hospital room. She was lying in a special bed that tried to reduce the pressure on her body. She looked so young and fragile. But when she smiled at Marcus, he saw strength in her eyes. She told him she did not want to give up. She had worked so hard to earn this scholarship. She wanted to become an engineer and build things that would help her people. She had 3 more years of study ahead of her. She asked Marcus if there was any way he could help her stay. Marcus promised her he would try his best. But honestly, he did not know what he could do. This was not like the Krillian ambassador. This was not about fixing one injury. This was about helping someone survive in an environment that was slowly killing her. That night, Marcus could not sleep. He kept thinking about Shipra and her problem. He thought about Earth and how humans had learned to survive in harsh places. Humans lived in deserts and frozen Arctic zones in mountains where the air was thin. They went to the bottom of the ocean and into space. How did they do it? They wore protection. They used technology to create the right environment around their bodies. That was when the idea hit him. The next morning, Marcus called a meeting with Velmora and Dr. Kent. He explained his idea using simple drawings on a datapad. He said they were approaching the problem wrong. They were trying to make Shipra's body adapt to the gravity. But what if they changed how gravity affected her instead? Dr. Kent looked confused. He said they already had exoskeletons that helped Velans move in high gravity, but those suits required too much power and did not stop the internal damage. Marcus shook his head. He said he was not talking about an exoskeleton. He was talking about something more like a second skin. On Earth, humans had developed special suits for extreme environments. Astronauts wore suits in space. Deep-sea divers wore suits in the ocean. These suits did not just protect the outside of the body. They managed pressure and supported the entire body system. He explained that they could create a suit covered with tiny pressure bladders. These would press against Shipra's body in exactly the right way to counteract the gravity. Combined with a low-frequency electromagnetic field generator, the suit could stimulate her bones and muscles to stay strong. It would trick her body into thinking it was still on her home planet. Velmora's sensory stalks perked up with interest. She said it was brilliant in its simplicity. Humans dealt with hostile environments by wearing protection. It was such a basic solution that none of the advanced alien doctors had thought of it. Dr. Kent was worried. He said the suit would need to be worn all the time for years. That seemed like a terrible burden to place on a young student. Marcus pointed out that humans wore clothes all the time. This would just be specialized clothing. If they designed it well, it could look good and feel comfortable. The next 2 weeks were crazy busy. Marcus worked with the station's engineering team. A Quellan engineer named Paxtal was especially helpful. The Quellans were masters at building small, complex technology. Paxtal was excited by the challenge. They built the first prototype quickly. Marcus made sure to work with Velan fashion designers to make the suit look beautiful. It should not look like medical equipment. It should look like something a young person would want to wear. The day came for Shipra to try the suit. She was nervous as the medical team helped her put it on. It covered most of her body but left her face and hands free. It was light blue with silver patterns that looked like the floating forests of her homeworld. Marcus turned on the suit's systems. Shipra gasped. Her huge eyes filled with tears. She stood up from her bed without any pain for the first time in months. She took a step, then another. She moved her arms and smiled. Through the translator, her voice sounded like music. She said it felt like being home. She said Marcus had given her life back. Marcus felt his own eyes getting wet. This was why he became a doctor. Not for fame or respect, but for moments like this. For the pure joy of helping someone when they needed it most. Over the next few days, Shipra's health improved dramatically. The suit worked even better than Marcus had hoped. She started going to her classes again. She worked in the engineering labs. She lived like a normal student. Word spread quickly. Other Velans studying on high-gravity stations heard about the suit. They wanted their own. Marcus and Paxtal worked to create more suits. They refined the design and made it easier to produce, but something even more important happened. Other species started paying attention. They realized that the human approach to medicine was different. Humans did not just think about biology and chemistry. They thought about engineering and adaptation. They thought about practical solutions to surviving in harsh conditions. Marcus received an official commendation from the Galactic Medical Council. It was a fancy ceremony where he had to wear formal clothes and shake hands with important aliens. He felt uncomfortable with all the attention, but Velmora told him to enjoy it. She said he deserved recognition for his creative thinking. The best moment came late one night when Marcus received a message on his datapad. It was from Shipra. She sent him a video of her first successful engineering project. She had built an improved gravity compensator for Starship engines. The device was smaller and more efficient than existing models. At the end of the message, she wrote a simple note in English. She thanked Marcus for believing that a Velen could thrive anywhere, not just on her homeworld. She said she would spend her life helping others the way he had helped her. Marcus saved that message. On hard days, when he felt tired or discouraged, he would watch it again. It reminded him why his work mattered. He stood at his window that night looking at the stars. Earth was out there somewhere far away, his home planet with its heavy gravity, its dangerous weather, its harsh environments. For most of his life, Marcus had thought of Earth as a difficult place to live. But now he understood something new. Earth had not made humans weak. It had made them adaptable. It had taught them to find solutions when others would give up. Being from a death world was not a curse. It was a gift. Marcus smiled as he watched a ship dock at the station. Somewhere on that ship might be another patient who needed help, another impossible case, another chance to prove that there was always a solution if you were willing to think differently. The legend of the Deathworlder doctor was growing. But Marcus did not think of himself as a legend. He was just a doctor doing his job one patient at a time, and that was enough for him. 6 months had passed since Marcus arrived at the Celestial Harmony. His reputation had grown. Doctors from other stations sometimes called him for advice. Medical students asked to shadow him during his rounds. But Marcus tried to stay humble. He knew he still had much to learn from the alien doctors around him. Then came the day that would test his courage more than his medical knowledge. Admiral Kreshtok called Marcus to the command center. The Admiral was a Korthan, a species that looked like 7-foot-tall reptiles with tough scales and sharp eyes. Kreshtok was a military officer who ran the station with strict efficiency. He did not call doctors to his office unless something was very wrong. Marcus arrived to find the command center filled with tension. Officers were working frantically at their stations. Admiral Kreshtok stood in the center, his scaled face grim. He explained the situation quickly. A transport ship called the Morning's Grace had sent a distress signal. There was an outbreak on board. 3 different alien species were infected. 47 crew members were sick. The disease was spreading fast. Marcus looked at the medical data on the holographic screens. His blood went cold. This was bad, very bad. The symptoms showed rapid fever, brain problems, and organ failure. The mortality rate was 100%. Once infected, people died within 72 hours. Velamora appeared next to Marcus. She looked worried. She said it was a Vexar plague variant. The galaxy had not seen one in 30 years. The last outbreak killed 12,000 people before they stopped it. Admiral Kreshtok continued talking. The Morning's Grace was asking permission to dock at the station for medical help. But the medical council had said no. The standard rule was to quarantine plague ships. They had to wait for the outbreak to burn itself out. Marcus felt anger rise in his chest. He asked what that meant. The Admiral said it clearly. It meant letting everyone on the ship die to protect the millions on the station and billions more across the galaxy. Marcus could not accept that. He asked if they could treat the patients without bringing them onto the station. Velamora's sensory stalks drooped with sadness. She said there was no treatment for Vexar plague. There was no cure. That was why they used quarantine. All they could do was wait and hope it did not spread. But Marcus remembered something from Earth's history. His planet had dealt with terrible diseases before. Ebola, airborne infections, radiation sickness. Humans had learned to treat patients in complete isolation using special protective suits and careful procedures. He told the Admiral to give him a medical team and a shuttle. They would go to the Morning's Grace and treat the patients there. They would use full isolation procedures with no contact with the station. Admiral Kreshtok stared at him. He said Marcus would be signing his own death warrant. Even with protection, the chance of getting infected was very high. Marcus said then he would go alone. He was not going to watch 47 people die if there was any chance to save them. What happened next surprised Marcus. Velamora said if he was going, she was coming too. Then another doctor volunteered. Dr. Pella was a Sorvian who studied diseases and immunity. Finally, Marcus's friend Kate Morrison stepped forward. Kate was another human, a scientist who had arrived at the station 2 months before. She studied alien biology. Admiral Kreshtok looked at all of them like they were crazy. He said humans were all insane. But he gave permission for the mission. The shuttle ride to the Morning's Grace took 3 hours. Marcus used the time to study everything known about Vexar Plague. He also thought about Earth's most aggressive treatments for infectious diseases. There had to be something they could try. When they docked with the Morning's Grace, Marcus saw how bad things really were. The ship's medical area was overflowing with sick people. Bodies were everywhere. The smell was terrible even through his isolation suit. The ship's doctor, an old Prelian named Vexton, looked like he had not slept in days. Vexton said they should not have come. There was nothing anyone could do. He had already lost 18 patients. Marcus told him that meant they still had 29 people left to save. He asked to see the worst cases. The next 72 hours were the hardest of Marcus's entire life. He barely slept. He barely ate. He just worked, trying to understand the disease and how to fight it. As Marcus studied the plague, he realized something important. The disease was not actually killing people directly. Instead, it was making their immune systems go crazy. The body's defenses attacked everything, including healthy tissue. People died because their own bodies destroyed themselves trying to fight the infection. Earth had seen similar problems: sepsis, severe allergic reactions, autoimmune diseases. The key was not to kill the infection directly. The key was to calm down the immune system enough so the body could fight properly without killing itself. Marcus explained his idea to the team. They needed to suppress the immune response, but only the part that was going crazy. They had to be very careful not to shut down the immune system completely, or the infection would kill the patients anyway. Dr. Pella said they had already tried immune-suppressing drugs. Nothing worked. Marcus said they had not tried human immune-suppressing drugs. He had brought experimental medicines from Earth. These were new drugs that targeted specific parts of the immune response very precisely. The problem was that every species reacted differently to medicine. What saved a human might kill a Velen. What worked for a Corthan might do nothing for a Quellan. Kate had an idea that changed everything. She reminded Marcus that Earth had thousands of different ethnic groups, all humans but with different genetics and different immune responses. Human medicine had learned to customize treatments for this diversity. Maybe they could use the same approach across different species. It made sense. Instead of using one treatment for everyone, they would study each patient's specific immune response. Then they would adjust the medicine to suppress only the dangerous parts while supporting the helpful parts. It was exhausting work. Each patient needed individual study and customized treatment. Marcus and his team worked around the clock. They drew blood, ran tests, calculated dosages, and administered treatments. Then they watched and adjusted as needed. After 60 hours of continuous work, the first patient's fever broke. Marcus almost cried with relief. Then another patient improved. And another. Not everyone survived. Some patients were too far gone when they arrived. The disease had already done too much damage. But slowly, steadily, more patients stabilized. Their immune systems calmed down. Their bodies started healing. By the time they returned to the Celestial Harmony, 26 of the 47 infected crew members had survived. In a disease that historically killed everyone, saving more than half was a miracle. Marcus and his team had to spend 2 weeks in quarantine to make sure they had not been infected. During that time, Marcus mostly slept. He was more exhausted than he had ever been in his life. But he also felt proud. They had saved lives that everyone said were lost. When they finally came out of quarantine, Marcus found the station transformed. News of the human doctor who boarded a plague ship and saved most of the crew had spread across the sector. The Galactic Medical Council gave Marcus and his team the Star of Valor. It was the highest civilian honor in known space. Important people wanted to meet him. News reporters wanted to interview him. Medical schools wanted him to give lectures. It was overwhelming. But the message that meant the most came from Captain Torval of the Morning's Grace. The captain was a Bendari, a species known for their emotional depth. His message was simple but powerful. He said Marcus had given his crew hope when the galaxy had given them none. That gift was beyond any measure of value. His crew members who survived would spend the rest of their lives grateful. They would tell their children and grandchildren about the human doctor who refused to let them die. Marcus saved that message too. He had a growing collection now. Messages from patients whose lives he had changed. Each one reminded him why he did this work. Late at night, alone in his quarters, Marcus sometimes thought about how close they had come to disaster. If his theory had been wrong, all 4 members of the medical team might have died. The patients would have died anyway. It had been a huge risk, but that was what being a doctor meant sometimes. Taking risks to save lives, trying new things when old methods failed, never giving up on a patient as long as there was even a tiny chance. Marcus looked at Earth through his window. His home planet where life was hard and dangerous, where humans had learned to fight, to adapt, to survive against terrible odds. That was the real gift Earth had given him. Not just medical knowledge, but the stubborn refusal to accept defeat. The legend of the Deathworlder doctor was spreading farther now. People across the galaxy were starting to talk about the human who saw solutions where others saw only death. But Marcus still thought of himself as just a doctor trying to help, one patient at a time. One impossible case at a time, one life saved at a time. That was enough. That would always be enough. 8 months had passed since Marcus first arrived at the Celestial Harmony. His name was now known across the sector. Doctors from distant stations asked for his advice on difficult cases. Some called him a miracle worker. Marcus felt uncomfortable with that title. He was just a doctor who tried hard and sometimes got lucky, but luck had nothing to do with what happened next. The patient was Admiral Kreshtok himself, the station commander, collapsed during a routine inspection of the docking bays. Security officers rushed him to the medical bay. Marcus was in surgery when the emergency call came through. He finished his procedure quickly and ran to see what was wrong. The scan showed something terrible. There was a massive tumor deep inside the Admiral's brain. It was wrapped around major nerve bundles that controlled everything from movement to memory. The growth was aggressive and had somehow hidden from regular medical checks until it was almost too late. Velmora delivered the bad news to Kreshtok when he woke up. The tumor was inoperable. Its location made surgery impossible. Without surgery, the Admiral had maybe 3 weeks to live. With surgery, he would die on the operating table from the damage. Marcus stood in the corner of the room, listening. He felt sick to his stomach. Kreshtok had become a friend over the past months. The tough military officer had a good heart under his stern exterior. He had supported Marcus when others doubted him. Now Marcus had to watch him die. Kreshtok took the news calmly. He said he had lived a good life. He had commanded fleets and explored new worlds. He had seen wonders that most people only dreamed about. If this was where his story ended, he could accept it. But Marcus could not accept it. Not without trying everything possible. He spent 2 days in his quarters, barely sleeping or eating. He reviewed every scan of the Admiral's brain. He studied Corthan neural anatomy until his eyes hurt. He read case files of brain tumors from 100 different species. He watched videos of surgical techniques. He searched for any possible answer. The problem was clear. The tumor was too deep and too tangled with critical nerves. Any attempt to cut it out would destroy the neural pathways. The Admiral would die or end up with such severe brain damage that death might be better. Then Marcus found something in Earth's medical history. A surgeon from Japan named Yuki Tanaka had developed a technique in the early 2100s. She used tiny robots called nanobots to take apart tumors, molecule by molecule. The nanobots were guided by advanced imaging that showed everything in real time. The technique had been revolutionary for human medicine, but it had never been tried on aliens. The nanobots were designed for human cells. Galactic doctors considered the technique too crude for their more advanced medicine. Marcus brought his idea to Velmora. She looked worried as she reviewed his plan. She said the nanobots had never been tested on Corthan biology. They might not work. They might even make things worse, Marcus agreed. But he pointed out that Corthans were tough. They came from a death world too, a planet with high gravity and extreme radiation. They had evolved to survive harsh conditions. Their brains had backup neural pathways and strong regeneration abilities. Velmora was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked the important question, what if the surgery failed? Marcus said then the Admiral would die 3 weeks from now instead of 3 weeks and 2 days from now. Kreshtok had already accepted death. This surgery would give him a chance at life, even if it was a small chance. They presented the idea to Admiral Kreshtok. He listened carefully, asking smart questions about the risks and the procedure. When they finished explaining, he laughed. His deep voice echoed in the medical bay. He said if he had to die, at least this way he would die doing something useful. He would be the test subject for a technique that might save others in the future. That was better than wasting away in a hospital bed. The next 18 days were intense. Marcus worked with Paxtall, the engineer, to redesign the nanobots for Corthan cells. Velamora used her forearms to map every neural pathway in the affected brain region. Kate helped program the quantum imaging system to handle Corthan brain tissue. The surgery was scheduled for a Tuesday morning. Marcus barely slept the night before. He kept going over the procedure in his mind, looking for problems he might have missed. The surgery began at dawn station time. Marcus sat at the control station with the neural interface on his head. Through it, he could see everything the imaging system showed him. He could control billions of nanobots with his thoughts. Velamora monitored the Admiral's vital signs. Kate managed the quantum imaging array. A team of nurses stood ready to help. Everyone was quiet and focused. Marcus guided the nanobots into the Admiral's brain. On his screen, he saw the tumor like a dark cloud wrapped around glowing neural pathways. He took a deep breath and began. For the first 4 hours, everything went well. The nanobots removed tumor cells carefully, avoiding the delicate nerves. Marcus worked with total concentration. His hands were steady on the manual controls. His mind stayed clear despite the pressure. At hour 9, they found a problem. A cluster of tumor cells had grown deeper than the scans showed. They were wrapped around a neural bundle that controlled memory. If Marcus damaged it, the Admiral might lose years of memories. He might forget his family, his career, his entire life. Velamora suggested leaving those cells and treating them with radiation later. It was the safe choice. Marcus studied the imaging for several minutes. The other doctors waited quietly for his decision. He could feel sweat running down his back inside his surgical suit. Finally, he made a choice that went against his training. Instead of cutting out the tumor cells, he programmed the nanobots to carefully separate them from the nerves. The tiny robots worked like gentle hands, peeling the cancer away from the neural tissue. Once the cells were isolated, they encapsulated them in a biofilm. Then they destroyed the cells without touching anything else. It was risky and it was slow, but it worked. By hour 14, the last tumor cell was gone. Marcus initiated the final step. The nanobots released special chemicals and stem cells into the damaged areas. These would help the brain tissue heal and regenerate. Marcus took off his neural interface. His head hurt. His eyes were tired. His whole body ached. But he felt incredible. They had done it. Admiral Kreshtok woke up 3 hours later. His eyes opened slowly. He looked around the recovery room with confusion. Then he focused on Marcus. His first words were typical Kreshtok. He asked in his rough voice if the surgery worked or if he was about to start drooling and forgetting his own name. Marcus laughed with relief. He said the tumor was completely gone. The Admiral was going to be fine. The recovery took weeks. Marcus checked on Kreshtok every day. The Admiral's brain was healing well. There was no memory loss, no cognitive damage. He remembered everything and everyone. It was a complete success. When Kreshtok finally returned to duty, he looked healthier than he had in years. The tumor had been growing slowly for a long time, causing problems nobody recognized. Now those problems were gone. The procedure Marcus pioneered became known as the Hayes Protocol. Within months, doctors across the galaxy were using it to treat brain tumors that were previously hopeless. The number of lives saved was impossible to count. Admiral Kreshtok became Marcus's biggest supporter. He told everyone about the human doctor who saved his life with technology that other doctors thought was too simple. He said it was time for the galactic medical community to reconsider what they thought they knew about healing. One evening, Kreshtok invited Marcus to his office for drinks. The Admiral poured something that tasted terrible, but Marcus drank it politely. They sat looking out at the stars. Kreshtok said something Marcus would always remember. He said Marcus had given him more than just more years of life. He had given him hope. Hope that there were still new solutions to old problems. Hope that different ways of thinking could save lives. Hope that being from a harsh world made you stronger, not weaker. Marcus went back to his quarters that night feeling grateful. He thought about his journey from Earth to the stars. Every challenge, every patient, every impossible case had taught him something valuable. Being from a death world meant seeing problems differently. It meant never giving up. It meant believing that there was always another way, even when everyone else said there was not. The legend of the Deathworlder doctor had grown far beyond the celestial harmony now. But Marcus still thought of himself as just a regular doctor trying to help people, one surgery at a time, one saved life at a time, one miracle at a time. and that was exactly who he wanted to be. 2 years had passed since Marcus first arrived at the Celestial Harmony. He was now 32 years old, and his life had changed in ways he never imagined. The quiet doctor from Portland had become famous across the galaxy, but fame felt strange to Marcus. He still just wanted to help. People then came an invitation that would change everything. The Galactic Medical Council wanted Marcus to come to their headquarters on the core world of Zentara Prime. They wanted him to present his methods and establish something new. They called it Deathworld medicine. The message came from Council Director Velshara herself. She was one of the Eternal Sages, a species that lived for thousands of years. She had seen the rise and fall of entire civilizations. When someone like her called, you listened. Her message said Marcus had challenged everything the galaxy thought it knew about healing. His human perspective, shaped by surviving on one of the harshest worlds in known space, had saved countless lives. It was time to make that knowledge available to everyone. Marcus stood in his quarters looking at the message for a long time. He felt torn. Part of him was honored. Part of him was scared. He was a doctor, not a teacher or politician. He just wanted to help his patients. Velomora found him there late that night. She carried datapads filled with patient requests. She asked if he was thinking about turning down the invitation. Marcus said he did not want to stop being a regular doctor. He did not want to become someone who just gave speeches and attended meetings. Velmora set down the datapads gently with her forearms. She said he should help people by teaching others. She reminded him that he had shown the galaxy something important. Being from a harsh world did not make humans crude or primitive. It made them creative and adaptable. It gave them a perspective that more advanced species had forgotten. She pointed to the datapads full of consultation requests. These were just from their station. Imagine what Marcus could do if he could teach thousands of doctors his methods. How many more lives could be saved? Marcus knew she was right. He accepted the council's invitation. The trip to Zentara Prime took 2 weeks. Marcus used the time to prepare his presentation. He was nervous. He would be speaking to the greatest medical minds in the galaxy. What if they laughed at his simple ideas? What if they thought Earth medicine was still too primitive? Kate came with him for support. She had become his closest friend over the past year. She told him to stop worrying. She said his ideas had already proven themselves. Now he just needed to explain why they worked. The presentation hall on Zentara Prime was enormous. It had to be to hold beings of vastly different sizes. Some species were tiny. Others were huge. All of them had come to hear the human doctor speak. Marcus stood on the stage feeling very small. He looked out at thousands of alien faces. His heart was pounding. But then he remembered why he was here. He was here for Shipra, who could now study anywhere because of a special suit. He was here for the crew of the Morning's Grace, alive because he refused to accept their deaths. He was here for Admiral Kreshtok, commanding fleets with a tumor-free brain. He took a deep breath and began. He explained that Earth was classified as a Class 12 death world. For most species in the room, spending even 1 day on Earth would be fatal. Heavy gravity would crush their bones. Extreme temperatures would cook or freeze them. High radiation would damage their cells. Aggressive microbes would infect them. Weather patterns would kill them in minutes. But humans evolved there. They did not just survive. They thrived. They built civilizations. They created art and music and medicine. They learned to explore even harsher environments than their home planet. Marcus showed images of Earth, mountains that reached into thin air, oceans that covered most of the planet, deserts where nothing could live, frozen lands at the poles, jungles filled with dangerous creatures. He said this environment taught humans lessons that gentler worlds never needed to teach. Humans learned that adaptation was survival. They learned that there was always another solution, even when the first 100 ideas failed. They learned that being fragile was not the same as being weak. He presented his case studies. Shipra dancing through the hallways in her gravity suit. Ambassador Krethnal returning to diplomatic service with his crystalline body healed. The survivors of the Morning's Grace alive and grateful. Admiral Kreshtok healthy and strong again. Marcus was honest about galactic medicine too. He said it was far more advanced than Earth medicine in many ways. The surgical precision, the understanding of exotic biology, the regeneration techniques, all of these were beyond what humans had achieved. But he said Earth medicine had something valuable too. Experience with hostile environments. Humans had spent their entire evolution finding ways to survive when everything around them was trying to kill them. He looked out at the assembled doctors. He said he was not claiming human medicine was better. He was saying it was different. And maybe by combining different perspectives they could save people that neither approach could save alone. The silence after he finished was terrifying. Marcus thought he had failed. Then one being in the front row started making their species version of applause. Then another joined in. And another. Soon the entire hall was filled with sounds of approval from hundreds of different species. Marcus felt tears in his eyes. He had done it. The next months were busy beyond belief. The Deathworld Medicine Institute was established with Marcus as its founding director. Doctors from across the galaxy applied to study there. Human medical professionals, once looked down upon, were suddenly in high demand. But Marcus could not stay in an office. After helping set up the institute, he returned to the Celestial Harmony. He told the council that he was a practicing doctor, not an administrator. He needed to see patients. Kate took over the daily operations of the institute. She was better at politics and planning anyway. Bellamora became co-director, bringing her centuries of experience. Together they built a curriculum that combined the best of Earth and galactic medicine. 5 years after Marcus's first day on the station, a new doctor arrived. Her name was Lisa Grant. She was fresh out of medical school on Earth and very nervous. She had read all of Marcus's case studies. She asked him how he solved impossible cases. Marcus smiled. He remembered being young and uncertain like her. He said he did not think of cases as impossible. He just thought of them as problems he had not solved yet. Earth taught humans that survival meant never giving up, even when the odds seemed terrible. Maybe that was the real gift of being from a death world. Humans were too stubborn to know when something could not be done. Lisa laughed. She asked if the secret to his success was just being stubborn. Marcus said it was stubbornness plus creativity plus a willingness to learn from everyone around you. He gestured to the medical bay where doctors from dozens of species worked together. Everyone brought their own experiences to healing. Humans just happened to bring experience with survival. That evening, Marcus got a message from Earth. It was from his old mentor, Dr. Patricia Hughes. She was the surgeon who had inspired him to become a doctor. She had watched his presentation to the medical council and wanted him to know she was proud. Her message said he had done more than save lives. He had shown the galaxy that humanity had something valuable to contribute. Not just technology or determination, but perspective. She told him to keep making humanity proud. Marcus went to his usual spot by the observation window. He watched ships arriving and departing from the station. Each ship might carry someone who needed help. Another patient. Another challenge. Another chance to make a difference. He thought about his journey. The kid from Portland who dreamed of being a doctor. The young physician who came to the stars hoping to learn. The legend who changed galactic medicine forever. But Marcus still saw himself as just a doctor. He treated patients one at a time. He solved problems one by one. He saved lives whenever he could. Somewhere out there, medical students were learning his techniques. Doctors were using his protocols. Patients were surviving because someone tried a Deathworld solution to their problem. The legend would continue growing. The Deathworld Medicine Institute would train thousands of doctors. The Hayes Protocol would save millions of lives across the centuries. But here, now in this moment, Marcus was simply Dr. Marcus Hayes. A human doctor on an alien space station, ready to help whoever needed him next. New patient charts appeared on his datapad. A Quellan with a rare blood disorder, a Bendari with mysterious neural symptoms, a Thaxian with a broken arm from an accident in the zero-gravity labs. Marcus smiled and headed to the medical bay. There was work to do, lives to save, problems to solve. Being from Earth, from a planet that tried to kill its inhabitants in 1,000 different ways, had given him gifts he never fully appreciated until he left home. Adaptability, creativity, determination, hope. The harshest environments created the most innovative solutions. The most dangerous worlds produced the most resilient people, and sometimes, just sometimes, the Deathworlder doctor was exactly what the galaxy needed. Marcus picked up the first chart and got to work. One patient at a time, one life at a time, one miracle at a time. That was his legend. That was his life. That was who he was. Dr. Marcus Hayes, the kid from Portland who became a legend among the stars.